I'm a professor of engineering and public policy at Carnegie Mellon University. I'm also the associate director of the Scott Institute for Energy Innovation at Carnegie Mellon. My teaching interests are mainly in subjects around energy systems, the theory and practice of public policy, and project-based learning courses that focus on the decarbonization of industrial processes. I am particularly passionate about industrial decarbonization, decarbonizing energy systems and doing so in a way that creates opportunity and minimizes impact on economic growth while addressing climate change. So when I started in the field of energy and sustainability, I actually didn't see a clear career path. So for me, what's been really important is actually discovering the many, many ways and in parallel the growth of opportunities in energy and sustainability work in industry, in manufacturing, and in a broader set of sort of research-related activities, including research institutes and universities. So I would definitely encourage graduates who work in sustainability to think broadly and to think creatively about their options. There are certainly lots of opportunities to help businesses understand and think through the sustainability challenges that they face, the impacts that they might be having that managers may not even be aware of. And in some cases, this involves engaging in fact-finding and understanding in these manufacturing fields, working even as an engineer with a sustainability mindset. So detecting opportunities to reduce waste, to increase circularity, to use materials and energy more efficiently. And as engineers find opportunities to do that using the skill sets that they learn at the intersection of engineering, public policy, and sustainability science, that can really empower them to move into roles of leadership, thinking about what possibilities exist for an industry and how public policy can support that industry in making a sustainability transition. Well, I think it's just perhaps the stereotype that sustainability is a soft topic, or maybe a less important topic than some of the hard subjects like engineering. Actually, getting the people side of sustainability right is as important as getting the technology side right. And integrating insights from across fields, from across engineering, public policy, social science, and humanities more broadly, are actually really powerful if you want to make progress on sustainability challenges. So I think going into sustainability is actually for people who are willing to think deeply about tough and complex problems and go beyond just their original skill sets and training in order to see sort of new opportunities and creative possibilities to change the way a business operates, maybe not just in terms of the products and technologies it develops, but also the systems that it uses, the ways that it operates, the customers that it addresses, and the markets that it transforms. So I think the next decade is really the moment for decarbonization. If we are going to get to net zero by 2050, we need to move swiftly and in a very deliberate and concerted way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions right now, and mainly from emissions associated with using fossil fuels, as well as emissions of methane, which is a very powerful greenhouse gas. So in order to do this, I think we need to increase our awareness across the supply chain of the sources of emissions that matter and the ways that our owned businesses and organizations are able to impact those emissions through various channels, and the ways that public policy is also creating incentives to reduce those emissions, again, through various technology strategies, but also various ways of organizing production. Again, we need to be creative, and we need to think through all of the different sources of greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with the business environment that a company is operating in. And so a good example of this is actually the automotive industry. We spent some time in class today talking about the automotive industry and how you can, in the automotive industry, there is a lot of focus on reducing emissions associated with the mainly electricity use, energy use associated with producing a car in a factory. But there's also the emissions associated with the steel that was used to make the car, as well as the emissions that are associated with the use of the car once it's on the road. And so an automaker needs to think about the growing pressures across the supply chain to decarbonize and ways of meeting those decarbonization imperatives through its purchasing, sourcing decisions, as well as its marketing strategies and pricing strategies. And public policy can really help significantly to change this landscape. I think as governments realize that there are more and more solutions on the table for addressing emissions at a modest cost, it will become easier to introduce tough climate policies that are necessary to evolve the global corporate and industrial supply chains on which we all depend in a direction that is significantly decarbonized and certainly in the direction of a net zero world. Well, there were a number of factors, and some of them I think were more, I should say, serendipity, and others were more deliberate. So I think getting into the field really required first that I connect with the field in some way. And when I was an undergraduate, there wasn't really an obvious path to working on sustainability challenges in the late 90s and early 2000s. But that path became clearer and relatively quickly over the next 5 to 10 years. More and more governments, businesses, policy communities, and colleagues that I came across were talking about sustainability challenges. I'd long been interested in science policy and the implications of science and technology for global development, and spent some time working on agricultural issues around sustainability and the introduction of crop biotechnology, particularly in developing countries. And that led me to realize that some of the tremendous challenges that were happening at the same time. I was living in China. I spent a year living and working in China shortly after I finished my undergraduate studies as a Luce Scholar. And that program really introduced me to the challenges of the energy system and the imperatives of addressing global climate change and global and local air pollution. And as I became more familiar with the challenges, I also became very excited about the possibilities for science and multidisciplinary approaches to really develop new solutions to some of these very challenging problems in sustainability that were emerging as a result of increasing resource use, a rapid economic growth, and most recently I got into industrial decarbonization, in particular because it is such an important and globally linked sector that has many interesting possibilities to reduce emissions, but also major barriers in the form of the fact that it's a trade, often the products are trade exposed, they're relatively low margin businesses, they're subject to volatile business cycles. And so the question is, how do you incentivize, how do you transform, how do you invest in the next generation of deeply decarbonized technologies? How do you interest companies downstream in purchasing for example, steel that is made with no carbon dioxide emissions, and how do you evolve processes to be able to support that? And I think those technical and societal challenges are tremendously important to solve, both to address the climate problem, but also for us to move forward and discover ways of addressing a broader set of sustainability challenges related to how we organize and advance both our economic and our societal interests in the future. I think in terms of challenges, one of the greatest challenges was actually figuring out how a multidisciplinary skill set could be used in the context of sustainability challenges as that field was just growing and evolving. Today there are so many opportunities for professionals who want to work in sustainability, and I think the challenge for me at the time was in imagining what that career could look like. And I certainly have been very fortunate to have terrific mentors and work with very enthusiastic and committed students, which of course is a big motivator when it comes to working in the sustainability field, because you suddenly start to see how much people collectively can do to address some of these tremendous challenges, and you become optimistic as you work together towards solutions. So the students that I've worked with over the past 2 days at NAMTech have just been tremendously engaged and excited about the material and sustainability. And of course, as an instructor, it's very invigorating and fun to teach students who have such a passion for a subject and in general for discovering and learning about the world. My experience at NAMTech has been exceptionally positive. I think the students were eager to engage in the simulation exercises, took away lots of interesting learnings and shared those, were willing to share those openly with their fellow students. The one thing I think that really stood out to me about teaching students here at NAMTech was the fact that they were willing to engage in unstructured problems in a way that I haven't seen very often with other groups of students, especially on such a short time frame. As part of the class, I asked the students, how would they develop a target for reducing CO2 emissions as an automotive company? How would they think about that challenge? How would they go through that process? And many of them ran into roadblocks as they tried to work with a spreadsheet and the methodologies that we provided, and at the same time remained optimistic throughout the entire process that they would find a solution, worked hard to figure it out, reframed the problem, and came up with multiple different equally valid ways of developing targets and thinking about target setting and strategies for reducing emissions in that industry context. So I really applaud the students for being willing to step outside their comfort zones and engage with new material and unstructured problems that may not lend themselves to obvious solutions, but be really very important and very common when we talk about addressing sustainability challenges. So just walking from room to room at NAMTech, you can really see the types of opportunities that students have to work with cutting edge equipment. It's been provided in partnership with some of the world's leading companies. It's really very, very exciting that students spend a lot of their time at NAMTech working with their hands, working alongside collaborative robots and industrial robots, working with systems with connected cyber-physical infrastructures that are likely new to them, but they're given room to experiment, to develop an intuitive understanding for how these systems work, connect that with their engineering training, and ultimately prepare themselves to be very effective in the global manufacturing workplace. So when it comes to professional development, for the students, I think they should remain curious and open throughout their careers to new opportunities, to ways of applying their skill set, to think about their education in terms of skills and knowledge that they possess that they can repurpose in different environments and work across boundaries, and be willing to talk to those who might use a language from a different field or bring a different expertise. I also think it's really important for students who are maybe not sure what they want to do next in their career to ask questions, remain open, and hone their communication skills so that they can identify that match that only comes from really engaging with different environments, different material, and different people who will quickly see in a well-spoken young person the possibility of a leader in a field, and in the sustainability field in particular, where communication and clarity of thought is really a very high priority. So I applaud NomTech for creating such a wonderful opportunity for these young people, for seeing a very broad vision for what the future might hold in India as well as around the world, in connection with the rest of the world. I applaud what NomTech has been able to accomplish, and I'm very excited about the bright future ahead. As young people have a tremendous opportunity to change India and to change the industries that they work in, to bring sustainability thinking together with their engineering expertise in order to reimagine a better future for all of us.